Now I'll be talking about assessment of risks. A risk assessment is simply a careful examination of what can cause harm to people so that you can weigh up whether you have taken enough precautions or should do more to prevent harm. Staff and others have a right to be protected from harm caused by a failure to take reasonable control measures. You are legally required to assess the risk in your workplace, so you must put plans in place to control risks. A risk assessment can be broken down into 5 stages. The first step is to identify the hazards. The second step is to decide who might be harmed and how. Third step is to evaluate the risk and decide on precautions. Fourth step is to record and communicate your findings and then implement them. And the last step is to review your risk assessment regularly and update if necessary. In identifying the hazards, walk around the warehouse internally and externally and look at what could reasonably be expected to cause harm. This figure is the accident pyramid adapted from Bird and Germain. This figure shows that for every 600 near misses, there are 10 serious injuries, and for every 10 serious injuries, there can be 1 fatality. Thus, every near miss needs to be recorded, investigated, actioned, staff trained, and the situation should be reviewed regularly. The second and the third step is to decide who might be harmed and how, and then evaluate the risk and decide on precautions. For each hazard, you need to be clear about who might be at risk and potentially harmed. You must also include cleaners, visitors, contractors, maintenance workers, and etc. who may not be in the workplace all the time. In each case, identify how they might be harmed, like what type of injury or ill health might occur. You should also evaluate the risks and decide on precautions, and discuss your findings with the company's safety representative. Having identified the hazards, you then have to decide what to do about them. First, look at what you're already doing and think about what controls you have in place and how the work is organized. In asking yourself this, consider the questions: can I get rid of the hazard altogether? If not, how can I control the risk so that harm is unlikely? And when controlling risks, apply the following principles: try a less risky option, prevent access to the hazard, organize work to reduce exposure to the hazard, issue personal protective equipment, and provide welfare facilities. The fourth step is to record and communicate your findings and implement them. When recording your results, keep it simple. You need to be able to show that a proper check was made, you asked who might be affected, you dealt with all the obvious significant hazards, the precautions are reasonable, and also that you involved your staff or their representatives in the process. Remember to prioritize and tackle the most important things first. The fifth step is to review your assessment regularly and update if necessary. Set a review date for the risk assessment and write it down and note it in your diary as a regular event. If possible, it is best to think about the risk assessment when you're planning your change. And now let's talk about management of health and safety. As part of the health and safety regime, steps must be taken to protect the welfare of employees and visitors, and therefore a safe and healthy environment must be ensured with proper welfare facilities being made available. These are the points to consider when thinking about design and layout: storage areas, aisles and gangways, pedestrian traffic routes, stairs and ramps, and emergency escape routes. Included in this should be the regular inspection and maintenance of equipment within the warehouse. Racking tends to be the largest structure within the warehouse and at times the most neglected in terms of inspection.